Run it up, then run it back. Run it up, then run it back.
Oh my goodness, it's Wednesday morning, which is a Friday for us, although Chandler lives in a constant state of Fridays, which is my favorite thing about Chandler. I will say this, yesterday we started the show with the pen. You held it for the entire hour.
Thank you.
And you're starting again with it today.
Yeah, of course.
Did you write anything down?
Not one thing, yeah.
Perfect. This is how I know it's
Gotta be close, though. Something comes to my mind.
Hella professional. This is Run It Back, if you haven't figured it out. Shams Charania, Michelle Beadle, Chandler Parsons, Eddie G on the end there. And we start with Timberwolves. You had this one. You guys went to the game, right? A couple of you guys went to the game.
Amazing game to be at. I mean, it was sloppy at times.
It felt playoffy.
It was a fun game.
It looked like the crowd was in on it. But yeah, Wolves big at the half. Lakers came back. They tied things up with a minute left to go. Dennis Schroeder with the go-ahead 3 with 1.4. And then, what? AD with a foul at the 3 on Mike Conley. Let's just start there. Surely we're all good with that call, right? That was a foul.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
And that's just, obviously it's fun in games now, and he's apologizing to Schroeder after the game that he blew his game winner. But you can't do this, and this could have cost them this game. This could have cost them their season. And by the way, there's probably 20 guys in the NBA that can go to the free throw line right there and make all 3 of those like Mike Conley did.
First one short.
First one was
makes its way in.
This I love the play-in too. I love the play-in.
Yeah,
and
it's
it
fun.
makes it so special. This game is kind of got a March Madness feel, but AD really messed up here. First of all, he messed up the switch on top, and then he literally doesn't let Conley land, and this literally could have been their season. So it obviously didn't work out that way, but yeah, this was a brain fart, as LeBron said.
Brain fart's a good way to look at it.
It's a good call by you about him missing the switch, too. Before the play, I mean, I don't know if they showed it on TV, but he was screaming at everybody. Like, he wasn't sure exactly how they were covering that. Yeah. And look, everybody runs that action down into the weak side corner off the inbound from the other side of the court. So he kind of knew, and he reacted just a little bit late. And, I was saying at the game, like, I think it's a flagrant. Like, it wouldn't have made a difference.
They could have Zaza him right there.
It wouldn't have made a difference with
that.
.1, but I thought it was a flagrant. They'd get the ball again. But look, shout out to Mike Conley, like you said, making those shots. That first one, a little sketchy, and he knocks it down. But tough way to lose a win you had in your hands.
Being at the game, the Lakers' sloppiness down the stretch definitely, it was evident. They had Minnesota gave them the game over and over, and the Lakers had 20 turnovers on the night, and when you look into the series against Memphis, if they're gonna have 20 turnovers, they're not gonna. That series is not gonna last long. The Timberwolves, it's interesting. Shot 12 free throws in the first half, 3 free throws in the second half, all on Mike Conley's 3-point foul shot. So, the whistle, they weren't as aggressive as the first half. And the Wolves as a team, 7 points in the final 11 minutes of the game, including overtime. So they went cold. Anthony Edwards went, clearly he had an off night. So we'll see how Minnesota brings it with Rudy Gobert back in the lineup on Friday.
Yeah, and it's tough. Anthony Edwards, it's hard to win when your star player is that inefficient from the field. But me and Eddie were talking too. The way he defends and the way he plays, like, I almost give him not a pass, but like, he's still competing. He's still playing within the offense. He's still giving effort on both ends. And so someone like this, he's gonna fix it on the next game. This is just devastating because they were up the entire game here, right? And they just looked like they ran out of gas. And I hate when teams play to win for 46 minutes and they get a lead and then they just watch the clock. And if you watch the end of this game, their offense completely changed. They got really stagnant. They held the ball. They let the clock just die. And the Lakers forced their hand and made them turn the ball over and then got out in transition. So they stopped doing what got them the lead in the first place. And that really cost them the game, along with Towns having one of the worst 5th fouls I've ever seen in a play-in game.
I want to do what few people do and have done this season. I want to give Darvin Ham some credit. They completely switched up their coverages in the second half on Cat. Obviously, the fouls hurt, but yes, he kept Jared Vanderbilt on Anthony Edwards the entire game and helped on his left hand the entire game and just would not let him get in rhythm. But they went to switching everything on Towns to helping on everything in Towns, and he was dominating smaller players in the first half. He dominated. I couldn't believe that Darvin Ham, he started second quarter with a lineup with no center. I think it was LeBron at center. Jared Vanderbilt was out there as well. And Cat just dominated. He got guards on him. He was driving. He was taking threes over guys. Second half completely changed the way they guarded him. AD took the assignment. Other guys were helping. And like Chandler said, that Timberwolves offense just went completely inept and just stagnant all around. Used a lot of Michael Conley dribbling at the top of the key, waiting for these guys to come off curls, and Lakers just switched everything, and they executed perfectly. That lineup they closed the game with in overtime, and that was a long stretch they played. LeBron, AD, Vanderbilt, Rui, and Dennis Schroeder, who obviously hit the big shot. That's going to be their defensive lineup going forward. That's going to be the lineup they feel that they can clamp teams with. 12 points in the fourth quarter, and 3 of them were those free throws. Like Shams said, just 7 points over the last final 11 minutes. That's what makes the Lakers scary, is that they defend. They had all the sloppiness that we mentioned, but when they can sit down on a team like that, that makes you competitive against everybody.
So here's the question, right? Because we all know Minnesota's missing 3 big pieces. This was a close game. Lakers were down as much as 15 at some point in this one. So today, while it was a great win and the building was very, very much alive, it took a lot. It took overtime for them to pull this one out. Is it a good sign that they were able to do that, or is it a bad sign that it was this close?
I mean, I think a little bit of both. I think if they play like this, where even the guys on TNT before the game, they're talking how, they should win by 30. This should be a statement game. Everybody's taking the Lakers to win this game. And they came out like that. They came out flat, and they came out like this team was shorthanded and that they could just go on the floor and Talent's gonna overtake and they're gonna win this game. And it's not gonna be like that going forward. And if they play like this against the Memphis Grizzlies, it's going to be ugly for them. So it showed a lot of heart. It showed that they could fight. They never gave up. Even when Timberwolves, they got it down to like 4 or 6, then they'd go to 11 and 12, and they'd go on these runs. The Lakers stuck with it. They defended. They forced them to turn the ball over. But yeah, they can't play like this moving forward, because this was a great win. They got the 7th seed, but now it's on to a bigger and better team, and they can't afford droughts like this and starts like this.
Yeah, I mean, this was the consummate play-in game. And credit to Adam Silver. Maybe the tournament in the midseason will work because the play-in works.
Yep.
You don't get the greatest basketball game of all time. There's a little sloppiness, but you get this tension, you get this competitiveness. And the Lakers seem to struggle a little bit with it, as crazy as it sounds. In the first half, they only shot 3 of 13 from 3. They could not knock down a jumper besides LeBron, ironically, and obviously AD. And in the second half, they picked up their defense. These games just matter. They're a perfect appetizer to the playoffs, and the Lakers just seem more seasoned at the end of the day. They locked in when it mattered most, and it sounds so cliche, but they were just so much better down the stretch. It was the difference in the game, and like I said, I love the play-in. It's the perfect, the perfect tease right before the real playoffs. And it was fun. That was fun.
I just have to say, I've seen LeBron James play twice in the last 5 days. The level he's playing at 38, gotta give the flowers. I mean, last night 30, 10, and 6. So, shout out LeBron James for the way he's playing.
You know what, Shams? I'm glad, because nobody compliments him at all.
Games.
So I feel like
I haven't seen him play live in a while. Well, actually, I saw him in Chicago. But
oh, that's right.
It's been a while in LA. Staples Center vibe or Crypto.com arena vibes are different. But no, I mean, what he did last night when they were struggling. AD, I've said when he's dominant, when he has 30 points or more. Last night he got close. This Lakers team is tough. But he was struggling most of the first 3 quarters. And for LeBron James, I think to keep the team alive, gave AD a chance to contribute down the stretch.
Would it have mattered if Gobert had been there? And, side note, secretly, was Rudy rooting for a win or a loss?
I think he would have made a difference.
It definitely would.
They needed him last night.
And especially that Towns is in foul trouble, and the game shifted when Towns went to the bench with that 5th foul. And as much as we want to hate on Rudy Gobert, his value is on the defensive end and his size, and he can guard Anthony Davis. So this was a huge hole, and I would assume he feels guilty. I would assume he feels like our team is the 7th seed, and now we're going to play the Memphis Grizzlies, who we think we can beat in a series. To now, he better have a big game coming up, because if not, they could be in Cabo next weekend with me, because their season could be over, and they might not even make the playoffs. So I think when you're out and your team loses, I think selfishly you do have a little part of you like,
yeah.
Now you guys know how much.
If you have any jerk in you at all, which we all do.
Which we all do. But also if you have any respect and integrity, you're like, man, I really could have just blown this for my team.
I mean, the game started with a series of offensive rebounds for the Lakers. Very first possession of the game, we get 3 offensive rebounds. It was a bad omen. The Lakers had 4 times as many offensive rebounds as the Timberwolves. They out-rebounded them in general. And, yeah, they needed him. If nothing else, they needed a body to put out there that they trusted in the minutes. We were talking earlier, there was a stretch at the end of the 3rd quarter, no Anthony Edwards, no Karl-Anthony Towns on the court, and it just looked like a mess, and they never recovered from that. Obviously, then Cat gets his 5th foul earlier in the 4th quarter, but they needed that body. They needed somebody they could trust out there, And, they're going to need him on Friday as well.
Same for McDaniels, like we were talking about.
Oh,
it
my
was,
goodness.
Nas
There
Reed.
was Noel,
They're down.
McLaughlin, Knight, and like Prince and Anderson were the 5 on the floor in a play-in game.
Qua?
I mean, that's tough. The fact that they were even in this game, respect. But now this game's over with, and now they literally have to win a game or they're done.
Yeah, how confident are we on that, by the way? Very, not
They've
very.
been through a lot. I mean, we'll see how the Pelicans have a chance for sure to beat Minnesota. I don't know about OKC, but OKC's tough
Interesting.
with Shai Gilgeous. But yeah, I mean, this team, they needed Rudy Gobert last night. They're down Nas Reed. They're down Jaden McDaniels. Like Chandler said, for them to even be in the game and should have won the game potentially, it's a kudos to them. They play hard. And when you talk to people around the Timberwolves, they have to play with a different level of urgency when one of those guys out of the lineup. And, you could argue they might be even more dynamic offensively without Rudy Gobert in the lineup, although Anthony Edwards struggled last night.
I love when tiny refs get in the middle of moments like that. Like, what's the plan here? Look, towards the end of yesterday when we were talking about the Lakers, we basically just told Dylan Brooks and John Morant, whatever you do, say nothing. Speak of this game not at all. Just wait to see who you're going to play in the first round. And sure as the sun
help
came up,
themselves.
Dylan Brooks went ahead and opened his big fat mouth and basically said, I wouldn't mind facing LeBron. Not just the Lakers. He specifically said LeBron James, the one guy on this team you probably shouldn't poke the bear.
We need to see that matchup.
Yeah,
Dylan
that's
Brooks
it.
has to be guarding him.
He
right?
wants to knock him out.
Sure.
So I ask you this. How are we feeling about this now?
At this stage in LeBron's career, I don't think he needs any extra fuel to the fire. but-
LeBron James, man who remembers everything that's said about him 20 years later.
Look at this.
Come on.
But yeah, this isn't smart. I remember Kevin McHale told me, you never want to give a killer a gun. And he,
Jeez.
and
What a
he-
line.
Yeah, and he just gave LeBron James even more ammo that he didn't even need, but that he's going to take. And you watch the matchups in the past, he's gotten into it with Bane, and he's gotten into it with the Grizzlies. So this is going to be an exciting series. But don't look now. The Lakers have a chance, Michelle.
No, I'm looking.
They have a
staring
chance.
right at it. I hate it, and it makes my heart hurt. How do you feel about? I mean, Dylan Brooks. Like, could you be more predictable, please?
Look, he said this about Kyrie like a month ago, and then he asked for Kyrie's jersey, and then
That was
Kyrie didn't
awkward.
want his jersey.
Yeah.
Like, maybe humble yourself this much. I know it's the playoffs, but just like Chandler said, we've seen this movie before. We've seen Deshaun Stevenson egg on
Oh,
LeBron.
dear.
We've seen all these. We've seen Nazir Muhammad egg on LeBron, and they all end up losing. So
the bear.
And that's the problem for the Grizzlies. Is they could very well lose this series. They can lose game 1. And this quote's going to be all over the place. LeBron's going to play coy, but, I remember them asking LeBron, Clay said you were sensitive or whatever he called him, and LeBron laughed, and then he didn't lose a playoff game again.
But he is
So-
sensitive, though. That's the irony.
And is Shannon Sharp courtside?
yeah, is he going
He
on the
better
road?
be.
Will they
He
fly him
has
on the
to
team
be.
plane
Yes,
to
I'd put him on the
Memphis?
bench. You know how they have the seats right next to the bench? Give me one of those.
He has to go with that cardigan. This is my one question, Chandler. Like, when you have a guy like a Dylan Brooks that is just constantly talking, is he telling the team, hey, I'm about to shoot my mouth off again this morning. I just want to give you guys a heads up?
No way.
Or he's just doing it and then they deal?
He's just doing it, and this is who he's become. And it's funny, I was telling Eddie yesterday that I had him as a rookie in Memphis. This wasn't him. He was a nice, sweet Canadian dude.
Sweet boy.
Yeah, he was a sweet boy.
Sweet
And
man.
to his credit, he's developed this toughness, this edge, this grit. And he's owning it. Again, we're talking about him again.
Oh,
right
God,
now,
yeah.
Right? So it's crazy, but he's not a bad dude. He's just kind of in this character now where I don't think he's stopping anytime soon.
I love it. I actually love it. I just hope it doesn't backfire, and it might very well do that. There was another game, Hawks Heat. I think we all had predictions on what we thought this game was going to look like, and I don't know that any of us were close.
No.
Atlanta led this one by as many as 24 points at one point. They ended up winning by 11. There was only one lead change in the entire thing. Trae Young, to his credit, came out with 25 points. The whole day was sort of spent talking about what is his future in Atlanta, what does it look like. There was an article sort of questioning his leadership, and that he's now been given the green light, the team, to put him on a trade block if necessary. So as far as wins go, how impressive, Eddie, was this one?
Oh, it was a great win. And the fact that it was essentially wire to wire, they just showed up ready to go. They showed up ready to get into the playoffs. It's crazy. It's not like they knocked down a ton of threes. It's not like, they won the rebounding battle. They almost shouldn't have won this game, but they came prepared. the Heat can't make a shot. Like,
Oof.
the Heat, they're one of the worst offensive teams in the league, and that's just where they are with it. Had it not been for Kyle Lowry, the greatest game he's had as a Miami Heat, maybe, this is like a 40-point loss. This is a drubbing, and it already was anyway. So, very impressive by Atlanta. Good luck with the Celtics. You're probably going home in 4, but that was impressive.
It's true, because when I see this matchup, I think the Heat's a better team, and I think they're tougher, and they have more vets, and they have better star power, and they played so slow last night. They can't score. They couldn't even get Bam the ball, and the Hawks brought the fight to them last night. I think all the talk about how they've maintained Trae Young, they were physical with him. Trae Young did a really good job last night getting off the ball, and he said after the game, Coach Quinn told me to play faster. He played faster last night while doing less, which I think is huge for him, because he didn't force things. In transition, he kicked it ahead. He still got to his floater. He still made some crazy step-back threes, and he played very, very well. But it was their bench. Their bench was great. Okongwu was great. Sadiq Bey was great. They had a collective effort where they had a bunch of guys contribute. And this is another team where, like, they could get hot like they did a couple years ago and make a run. Or they could get swept. It's kind of the inconsistency of the Atlanta Hawks. But this was a big game for Trae Young, and I'm happy for him that he kind of silenced the critics for now.
Yeah, and the thing is, the timing of the story coming out about the team open now to possibly trading Trae Young. It was weird timing, given that they had this game yesterday, and we sort of wanted to see what Trae Young would do. What's the pressure for him like right now?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the way he played last night, when you look at him, his talent and what he does on the floor, outstanding player, 25 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. And the biggest question for the Hawks was, when they bring in Quinn Snyder, what was that relationship going to be like? And from everything I'm told, their rapport, their relationship has been solid. I think there's a level of genuine respect. But there's one thing that's for sure, Michelle. The Hawks are continuing to monitor his behavior, his day-to-day commitment, just his habits on a day-to-day basis. As far as how he wants to be a leader, is he willing to do the things necessary to be the face of the franchise? And there's certainly continued question marks around that. And I think that still exists in Atlanta. And I do think that will be a conversation that these two sides are going to have come summertime, as far as what does the future look like in Atlanta. But again, if they somehow upset the Celtics, where does that lead things? So you have to see how the playoffs play out. You have to see how everything goes. But I do think, his agent is Rich Paul. I think there's going to be a level of conversation with ownership as far as where they see things, where they view things, and just a real conversation about where things stand.
How do you, you're not with the guy 24/7, right? So how do you gauge whether or not, does he make his bed in the morning? I know leaders say you should make your bed in the morning. That's what successful people, like, what are we doing to figure this out?
Again, I think Shams touched on it. This series coming up.
So it's this.
It has a lot of weight, because you can kind of see if he grows up, if he matures, if he can lead his team in the biggest series of his career and go take down a monster like the Boston Celtics. And again, I think this last night was a good step. He showed signs of progress here. But it's all about what they can also get for him. They have a lot of pieces. They have a lot of things that they could probably have, a lot of assets, a lot of players they could bring in. A lot of teams would love to have Trae Young on their team, because this kid is a generational talent. He can shoot the ball. I swear, I think he would be much better as a second or third option. So I think a lot of weight is on him, but also no one's given them a fighting chance. I do think they have a chance personally, but no one's expecting them to win this series.
What's a chance? Like, they win 1, they win 2? Because Eddie said sweep.
Well, I don't want to get to my hot takes, but I actually think of all the bottom Eastern teams,
right,
I think whoever's the 8th seed, I think the Bucks are going to destroy them, and I think the Philly. No offense to our guest coming on today.
Yeah, that's awkward, but yep.
They don't have a chance.
Okay.
I think this, with the power they have, with the shooting they have off the bench, with the depth, I think this team could give the Celtics a fight. Do I think they're going to win the series? I don't know. But
fight.
If I had to pick a dark horse, I'm going with the Hawks.
Trish.
I think the trade thing you have to examine from a team building standpoint. How else do they acquire assets on the market? He's their best asset to trade. They've tried to trade John Collins for 3 years running now, right? And they've had to continuously say, no, we're not trying to trade him. But everybody knows they're trying to trade him. Clint Capella, who had a great game last night. I flubbed it earlier saying they didn't win he had 21 rebounds himself. Clint Capella has been an interesting asset. Bogdan Bogdanovic, same thing. Every trade deadline, interesting asset. DeAndre Hunter. They have guys that are intrigue people, but we're talking about maybe getting a pick back, maybe getting some salary back. But when you trade a Trae Young, you can get a bunch of things back and you can go from there. DeJounte Murray, their other starter, they just gave up a haul for him. They can't buy out of that already. So I think from that standpoint, yeah, Trae is an interesting asset going forward, and you have to consider what the Hawks would think. And look, if your future hinges on one series, a series that you're a massive underdog in, like, is that exactly confidence from the organization?
I think it's a build-up, but they've given Trae Young. Trae Young's, you were there. He's had the keys to the franchise. Now are you going to put in, I think, the level of commitment and work to keep the keys and be that franchise piece? And clearly, it seems like the Hawks, their vision for what they view as their franchise cornerstone and their franchise face, I think there are some question marks now. Is this the guy we want to move forward with? But a lot of that has to play out. This playoff series is going to be big. I don't know if it's a tell-all, but how does the next 2 weeks go? How do the conversations after that follow as well?
Yeah, and it's not just basketball. You know, it takes everything going into a leadership. It takes being early, being last one there, taking the young guys, staying after practice, organizing team events. And I just don't know if Trae Young's got to that point of his career where he's doing that, and you can count on him doing that. But basketball-wise, he's going to produce. He's going to score a lot of points. But it's all the other things in that culture, in that organization that he needs to do, and not be in the headlines for, you know, the coaches getting fired or arguing with this guy or not showing up to a game because he got into it. Like, you can't do that as a leader of a team, especially a young team when you've already given so much. So it goes both ways.
We have to touch really quickly on Jimmy Butler because Kevin Love loves him, and then Jimmy Butler did the self-motivation thing yesterday where he's like, no one's picking us, and maybe there was a reason for that.
Didn't he say they were going to win, too?
Yeah, like,
something like that.
How do we feel about Jimmy Butler last night?
6 for 19, not very efficient. He didn't really show up there in crunch time. And again, this is just one game, but that's why the play-in's so unique, right? Like, they have a chance right now. Everyone was taking the heat to win this game. I think they're a better team, but that's what makes this play-in so special, is that anything can happen. And then the Hawks were ready. The Hawks were more physical early on. And again, it's careful what you say in this league. It can come back to bite you.
Even if it's about yourself.
Even if it's about yourself, your teammate, anything. Yeah, people don't forget.
Maybe he got a little confused by the fact that this isn't technically a playoff game. But Jimmy, it's time to take it a little serious, my guy. It's time to lock in. But yeah, I mean, they have one more chance, and he needs to be better. And I don't think you can count on another Kyle Lowry performance like that. So yeah, it's time for him to lock in.
Jimmy must get serious, Shams. That's the bottom
Playoff
line.
Jimmy, I saw that trending on Twitter.
When we come back, we're taking a quick break here. Spencer Dinwiddie will be joining us so that Chandler, to his face, can tell him he has no shot in the next round. I think that'll be a fun interview.
Yeah, hate to see it.
When Run It Back returns.
Run it up, run it back, run it up, run it back, run it up.
Ain't no fatigue, no, we never sleep, yo, we in the gym, yo, we in the gym.
Spencer Dinwiddie delivers. Dinwiddie,
You know the man.
Oh, yes, our guest today is starting point guard for your Brooklyn Nets, playoff-bound Brooklyn Nets. Spencer Dinwiddie is joining us today. And before we get started, I know you just turned 30. Memories. Happy birthday.
Hey, happy birthday.
Did you celebrate, or
Thank
are you
you.
a
I
birthday
appreciate
person?
that.
Like, how does that work?
Not really.
You don't do
It's
birthday
another day, to
Clinching
be
playoff
honest.
burst.
Yeah, yes, fair. That's how we're going to do it. Okay, look, Chandler, I'm throwing you under the bus because you did it to yourself, but you guys are playing the Sixers in the first round. Chandler started the day already today with the smack talk, said you don't have a shot, so I'm going to go right to that. How do you match up against this Philly team, Chandler?
I mean, that's understandable, and you hate to see it from a good friend like that.
You hate to see it.
You just hate to see it.
I mean, Embiid's the likely MVP, so obviously we're gonna have to give it everything we got in terms of stopping him. But to be honest, I mean, out of the major seeds, we probably match up with them the best if we can limit him, not foul him. We feel like defensively there's ways we can attack them as well. Mikel's playing at a high level. We know they don't necessarily get back in transition. And we want to play fast. We're young. We understand we have no expectations. And we like our chances, to be honest.
Spence, you've had an interesting year. The first half of the year, you're playing alongside Luka Doncic. You're one of the leaders in three-point field goals from the corner. And then the second half, you play more isolation basketball. You're one of the league leaders in isolation points per possession. You're up there among the elite players. What was the adjustment like for you mentally, emotionally, physically, to go from playing alongside Luka and starring next to him versus being the lead guard again?
Emotionally, I'll say it was probably a little bit easier just because I was coming back to a familiar place. So, thank God for Brooklyn. I've always said, Dallas and Brooklyn have been the two spots that I've had a ton of fun in my career. As far as adjusting my game, I think that's kind of been a hallmark of my career. You know, wherever I've gone, I've tried to do whatever was asked of me to help the team win. You know, I mean, right now, I think I'm passing the ball at a pretty high clip, which is what this team needs. You know, I've been 6-man gunner. I've been, you know, lead a bad team to the playoffs, you know, co-star, or not co-star, but be second under a superstar and catch, shoot threes. It's, to me, it's always been about winning and trying to understand just what the team needs at that point in time. So, you know, that's the reason for the adjustment.
Yeah, Spence, sorry about my colleague, Michelle. She likes to gas things up quite a bit. You hate to see that. But the Nets, you guys have been gelling a lot and very quickly. I only have played a few months together. How did that develop, and how did you guys do that so quickly?
I think it has to do with just being really high-quality guys who've experienced winning a little bit. You know, the Twins have gone to the finals. Me and Doba in the Western Conference Finals. You know, Nick and Joe are super high-character guys, and just everybody around, right? So, you know, we've all tried to come together, understand that we have a kind of a daunting task, that we haven't been together very long, but, you know, we believe in each other.
Yeah, look, you mentioned the Twins. You mentioned Mikal Bridges, you're his teammate now. I remember you guys getting into it a little bit. Does that stuff carry over? How do you address that when you get the young fella in your locker room with you after all these years?
It's actually funny because we definitely had a little smoke in Phoenix. We actually had some banter during the game too. But you know, that's water under the bridge. I think everybody's been surprised with exactly how high level he's been. You know, we all knew he was probably a 20-point-a-game scorer, but, you know, to be in that 26, 27 range takes us from, you know, just being a decent team to, you know, a pretty good team. And I think we're going to need every bit of that in the playoffs, and I think he's ready for it.
Spence, you had an exit from Brooklyn sign and trade when you went to Washington, 3-year, $60 million deal. Now you're back in Brooklyn. How do you feel as a player? Do you feel more mature? Do you feel like, obviously, you're a much better player than you were when you left, so you're maturing in that way. But leadership-wise, what has been your focus?
Oh man, I mean, I think I learned a lot in the stops in DC and Dallas as well. You know, when I was in Brooklyn the last time, you know, I was first under kind of D'Lo and then obviously under KD and Kyrie, so it wasn't really my team, so to speak. Like I said, I learned a lot in the other two stops, and then coming back, I knew that in a short time span, we were gonna have to kind of pull the guys together. And so I think just having a little bit of elder statesman knowledge, along with Joe Harris as well, just doing whatever I can to learn the guys and try to bring people together. You know, but again, it's a credit to the high character guys that we have, right, and that have experienced winning and are jumping on board and really just following the lead of our coach Jacques Vaughn.
So February 5th, you find out you're going back to Brooklyn, traded for Kyrie Irving. What was that like? How do you find out? And is there something upon your return to Brooklyn immediately that you're like, well, can't wait to do that? Maybe it's food. I hope it's food.
Oh, February 5th. I would say my sources probably told me like February 3rd, but you know, I don't want to take you know, I don't want to take Shams' job or nothing like that. Yeah, I mean, I would say the most exciting part about coming back to Brooklyn was just like the holdovers. You know what I mean? Jacques Vaughn, Sean Marks, Joe Harris, Nick Claxton, you know, guys that I've already obviously talked about so far on this interview alone. And then since we want to talk about food, Juliana's Pizza, shout out them. When I have my cheat days, I like to either get a pizza from them or get a waffle from Clinton Street. And then it's back to fruit and, you know, steak.
Oh, I love it. I need food Rex always. Love that.
Spence, you got to be honest here. How do you feel about the Mavs not making the playoffs after trading you?
Oh, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, there's a certain level of you know, happiness from the pettier sides of my psyche. You know, they're my friends though, so you know, I didn't want to see it go down like that. You know, on the other side, you know, Theo, Bullock, you know, Luka, all those guys. I mean, JaVale, we went to war together. They're a playoff caliber team. Obviously, they had their mishaps and things that didn't allow them to see the postseason. You know, but overall, like, you know, I wanted them to do well. But there is that little piece that I ain't gonna lie, I'm kind of a little bit happy.
Yeah. I totally get that. And last thing from me, how's it been with Ben Simmons? Is he around? Is he practicing? Is he working out? What's the status on him?
He hasn't been practicing. You know, I know his rehab is, you know, up to him and what he's doing right now. He's got to do his best for his body. I think we all know the type of explosive and dominant player he can be on both ends of the floor when he's healthy and when he's right. And I think for the best thing for his career is to get right. Not sacrifice too much for, a playoff run. But he's around the guys. He's been a great teammate. You see a lot of things in the media or whatever that, he's not necessarily the highest character guy or something like that. And so far that's been furthest from the truth. He's been in the locker room every day. He's been, championing the guys on. I've never personally dealt with a back injury. And so it's not really something I can comment on. To the older guys that I know that have, they talk about like it's one of the worst things in the world, So I think in some respects I have a lot of sympathy for that. And like I said, it's a topic that I don't know well.
Well, here's a topic that you know well. Here's a Twitter from earlier this year. You and Kyle Kuzma had a little actually, it wasn't even a back and forth. He sort of came at you, and you said they're not trying to play winning basketball. He responds on Twitter. The funny thing is they don't play winning basketball. But you didn't do anything else on Twitter. Do you have a response now that it's been some time?
Oh, man. Didn't I just say I was petty?
Yeah, I know. Yes, please.
So here's the thing, right? And obviously I spent some time in D.C. with Kuz. What's that thing Draymond just said where he said insecurity is loud?
Yep.
So basically here's what happened, right? We lost to them. I was on the Mavericks. And obviously we have a MVP caliber guy and we're trying to be a championship caliber team, just went to the Western Conference Finals, et cetera, et cetera. So I make a statement about, we need to be better, understanding the culture and how games are kind of played in D.C. and saying, that's an unacceptable loss in that fashion. He decides to respond because I guess he felt like it was a shot at him. And I wanted to respond. My agent told me to stand down, that we had, bigger fish to fry, things to do, get to the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But, now I'm not in that environment. I'm in the playoffs. He's not. And, to address no, I'm just saying to address the socialite, right? Like there's a lot of guys in the NBA that really pour their heart and soul into basketball, are willing to do whatever it takes to win. There are a lot of guys that have different things that drive them and motivate them. I think if we look at, him and the way he approaches life, fame, all that stuff, that we could see that, his priorities tend to vary, right? Like that's why he dressed the way he does. He, approaches basketball the way he does, the comments he makes. And like I said, with the Draymond quote, insecurity is loud. Like you know that you're there, shooting shots to try to get a contract. You're probably not even a third star really on a good team, because if you were, the Lakers would have kept you, right? Part of the reason you left was to try to make more money. Like these are all things that are facts. And so at the end of my career, one thing that I want to be known, besides a guy that did whatever it took to win in whatever spot he was at, is a guy that was also very honest. And so like my complete response to, Kuz and all that other stuff, to address it directly, I played with the guy. You know what I mean? We know what the priorities were. And, a lot of times people thought I was talking about Brad or whatever, anything like that. I look at Brad in the same light as like a Dame. I think he's loyal to DC. I think, probably on a championship team, he's probably got to be paired with like a Giannis. He's probably 1B, which is no shot. I know on a championship team, I'm probably the third guy, kind of like a Drew Holiday with a Chris Middleton and, Giannis or whatever. I'm very secure with who I am in my career. I know on a really good team I can be a number 2, kind of like we are right here with the Brooklyn Nets. We got Mikal, we got me. We're still a playoff team. We're able to keep the ship right. But in DC, if you got 3 max dudes, Porzingis, Brad, and Kuz, like how you missed the playoff? Like none of these things make sense. You know what I'm saying? Unless your priorities aren't in order. And so I would say that's my probably full monologue to that. I hope you guys got everything you need.
Yeah, can we say thank you? Thank you. You want to come? You want to come to LA? Like,
cut out for a second. We say that again.
My feelings are hurt.
Hey,
I feel
here's the thing. Look, like I said, I want to be known as an honest man when it's all said and done.
Well said. Well said, Spencer.
And so, if you're going to come at me and especially because I took the clown emoji personally, I ain't going to lie.
That's fair.
That part, it bothered me because he knows who he is and he knows who I am. You know what I'm saying? Everybody around the league knows who I am.
Look, Spence, we were hoping we were going to get some bulletin board material, but it was about this other topic. But you already gave your answer. Your MVP is Joel Embiid. Can you tell us why? What do you think of the other candidates? This is the biggest convo going. And I guess you're going to be a little more polite. You're about to play this guy. You said you gave us all your hot takes already, so I appreciate that.
Nah, I mean, like I said, I view myself as honest. I'm not here to be polite. You know, obviously, I hope I can dunk on him again, right? Like,
Right.
But because y'all playing the highlight. But in general, though, I think it looks to be a 3-horse race. I think you look at Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis. I personally think Giannis is probably the best player in the league. I think he gets a lot of flack because he's like skinny Shaq, but people want to see him like play like KD with like a jumper and stuff. But like if we really appreciate the fact he's skinny Shaq, then it's like, bro, he's dominant as hell. But just looking at the year Embiid's had, I think it's his second scoring title. His ability to draw fouls, like 12 free throws a game, 33 points. He scores in a variety of ways. He's just an ultimate force. I mean, right now we're basically watching his highlight tapes to prepare for, playing. So, and we understand it's a daunting task. And obviously Jokic just won back-to-back, and, we understand media narratives, and maybe they don't want to give him 3 times in a row. All that stuff plays a factor. And so I would just say, like, if I was a betting man, I'd choose Embiid. I think he's up there with the best players in the league. I think Giannis is probably the best, but, that's just kind of how I view the whole race.
Spencer, this has been an absolute.
I'm sorry. I gotta add one thing, Spencer. You've been in the playoffs, obviously Western Conference Finals. How many of the last years? 4 or 5? How many consecutive playoff years for you?
Playoff years? I mean, if you count the one I was hurt, then yeah, 4, 5, 4.
Uh,
That's what's up.
What?
Yeah.
What was that, your Chris Farley interview moment? What was that?
No. I just wanted to add that context to the conversation.
Yeah, 5 years. We had the D'Lo year with the Sixers. Then I took them to the playoffs when the bubble stopped everything.
Oh.
Then, we got the hurt year, and then Western Conference Finals, and now he played the Sixers again.
And then it begins. By the way,
context is important, Michelle.
Context is very important. Honesty
very
is very important. And blowing people up is one of my favorite things of all time. Spencer, best of luck in the first round of the playoffs. This has been a pleasure, and we'll be watching. Chandler,
league assist leader in the second half of the NBA season.
Oh yeah, that too. Assist leader.
Exactly. Perfect. Yes, that was awesome, and I enjoyed it. I'm watching your faces, by the way. It was fantastic.
Thank you, Spencer.
Yeah, thank you. We'll process all that in this break, and when we come back, we'll preview, because we got more play-in games tonight. Also, I'll probably mention that again. That was something. A soliloquy, if you will.
Run it up, run it back, run it up, run it back, run it up, run it back, run it.
Well, we do have more games tonight. The play-in continues. It's Bulls or Raptors. That's the first game of the night. All right, talk to me. I need some reason why each of these teams have a shot of winning. Chandler, go.
Well, I think it's the big 3 in Chicago. 2 of them have to go off, which presents a challenge, though, because Toronto's wing defense is so good. OG has been clamping DeMar. Scotty Barnes, they have a very versatile roster that can switch 1 through 5, so it does present a challenge, especially to a team that shoots a lot of mid-ranges. But it's going to be an exciting game. I'd go with Toronto at home. I think Fred and Siakam are they're kind of finding their rhythm, and again, I think defensive versatility they have is going to give the Bulls little fits.
Yeah, look, this is the good part about the plan. We didn't get 4 bad teams. We got 4 underachieving teams that dealt with injuries, teams that dealt with a bunch of different things. These are 2 decent teams. We had high hopes for both of these teams coming into into the regular season. So I think it's going to be a great game. I do lean a little bit to home court, and I'm gonna just say it. I think whoever wins this game, I also think they're gonna beat Miami.
Okay.
They cannot score.
Is that after last night, or you already had thought that?
I had already thought that.
Okay.
And last night helps because I kind of thought Miami was gonna beat Atlanta. So don't take my picks to the bank. Our parlays are like the worst in the.
We are
the
not
industry.
good. Yeah, you're right.
But I think they have a fighting chance for sure.
The Pat Beverly thing, there was this moment last year, who's ever going to forget it, when they got a win. You'd think they'd won the championship based off the celebration that Pat Beverly gave us, and I'm grateful for that as well. But will we see any of that if the Bulls win tonight?
Not in Chicago, not where MJ played, not with that history there. This was a big win and buy-in for the Timberwolves, and this was still a lot. But no, you can't do this in Chicago with all the history they have there. No chance.
Is Drake gonna be there? I feel like that's a little extra fuel.
For sure,
Pat
Drake's gonna be
Beverly's
there.
fire. So
Yeah.
maybe a little, brouhaha with Drake or something, but not this. There's no need for all this.
Really? You think Pat Beverly in the moment will remember, Michael Jordan was here, I cannot behave this way?
He should.
Yeah.
Please do.
He needs to.
Please do, big fella.
But he won't, and that's what's great. If you're the Heat watching, who do you want to play?
I'd rather play the Bulls because they're not as good defensively, and the Heat, we just saw their struggles last night. They would have got routed without the Kyle Lowry, 30-point game. So I would rather play the Bulls. I think they're a little more inconsistent. They settle a lot for long mid-range, long 2-point jump shots. And Toronto, I think, would give them a lot more trouble scoring the ball than they already have.
I think Alex Caruso and Pat Bev defending the point of attack, really bothering Tyler Hero. That scares me a little bit, especially since that's almost all their shot creation. But I still agree with Chandler. I think, you would think about how you can attack Vucevic, what you can do on that end. You would imagine Bam will be a little better on Friday. So I'm going to go with the Bulls, but again, I think they have a puncher's chance as well.
I really like Toronto's roster. Like, I think when Jakob Poeltl, they've been, your guy Jakob Poeltl.
Yeah.
Toronto's been a lot better second half of the season, above 500 with him in the lineup. And so I just, from a roster perspective, I think Toronto has it. For whatever reason, they have not been able to put it fully together this year.
I will say, if Toronto wins this game, I think they beat Miami. If Chicago wins this game, I think Miami beats Chicago.
Oh, too many things to remember.
Right.
That's
Carry the two.
Math. Here's what I find interesting, too. Both the Bulls and the Raptors were teams that heading into the trade deadline, we were waiting, seeing what they would do. If either one of these teams lose, can we expect, and Shams will be the busiest if this happens, can we expect the rumors to start that perhaps they start to break things up and rebuild?
Well, if you're Chicago, the only, you clearly have decisions because DeMar DeRozan's going into the last year of his deal next year, so you're going to have to make a decision. Are you going to extend him? He's eligible for a massive extension this summer. Do you want to give him that? Where do you stand on that? He's been the face of this team since he's been there. They're arguably their best player on a nightly basis. Vucevic also will be a free agent. So in Chicago, they're for sure going to have decisions to make. Toronto as well. Nick Nurse going to go into the last year of his deal. 1 year, $8 million left on his deal. Where does he stand? To my knowledge, there have not been extensive extension discussions yet. He's even been open about the fact that he could take time to decide on his future. So where does that stand? He's going to be one of the leading targets for Houston for their next head coach. So a lot of question marks in Toronto as well. OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam also will be entering the final years of their deal. So both teams, like you said, Michelle, a lot of decisions are going to come once they're eliminated.
I think Chicago's in a little worse position because their big three is older, right? Like they're prime. They're in their peak. They're at least the guys in Toronto, like OG, like Scotty, they have a future and they have a core there that they can grow with and they can get better. This is what they are in Chicago, and so this is a team that had a little bit higher expectations, and now if this is them and their prime, their big three, and they're playing as a 10 seed and just fighting to get into the playoffs, that's not very promising for your future. So at least Toronto has these younger assets to kind of build with if you do want to move a Siakam or a Fred or things like that.
Yeah, I think Chandler got it. They invested so heavily into that big three, and then their head coach, and much like the Wizards, completely underachieved. When you invested all that capital into three guys and said this is who we're building around, and then even free agent additions like Alex Caruso to then do this. Lonzo Ball, obviously, huge hit for them, and they're still dealing with that, and they probably won't see him next year as well. If there's a time for that team to rebuild, it is now, and it is time to explore what they do with those guys, and if they're going to pay DeMar DeRozan all that money, and if the Zach LaVine market, and see what they can get. He's starting a massive contract, and maybe they want to get out from under that. So a lot to decide this summer.
I thought they were going to do it at the deadline.
Yeah,
Same.
I think we thought we waited. We waited for all of that to happen. There's another game. The later game is Thunder, Pelicans, and Shams right off the top. Zion, not playing tonight, but do we have anything?
From what I'm told, the Pelicans do not believe he's anywhere close to being back on the floor. There's no expectation that he will be on the floor at any point in their first-round series if they are able to advance into the playoffs. He's a very unique spot. We've never seen a player 6'6", 6'5" that's able to jump, able to move the way he's able to at his frame. So for him to come back onto the floor from a hamstring injury, he had a setback from it. This is a guy that's had multiple setbacks. He had a foot fracture he had a setback from last year. Now you have the hamstring injury he had a setback with. So clearly when he's progressing 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, there's been setbacks. And so when he gets back on the floor, they want to make sure conditioning-wise he's 100%. And he spoke yesterday, and he said mentally and just feeling like Zion Williamson, like this guy that we see do these massive dunks with relative ease. He says he just does not feel like he's that guy yet, and he's going to get back on the floor when he does feel like that guy. So, we all want Zion Williamson to play. The game is better when he's playing, and the Pelicans have a legitimate chance to advance in the playoffs if he's on the floor. But the playoffs, like he spoke to, it's hard to just jump into the playoffs,
right,
having not played since January 2nd.
Yeah, I agree, and it's disappointing just because of how good and the potential they have with Zion in the lineup, with BI, with CJ McCollum, with these young assets that were so fun early on in the year. They competed, and they were, to me, a top 4, top 5 team in the West when they're fully healthy. But just with BI out and with Zion, I can't see them advancing. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost tonight. I think they do get tonight, but I don't think they get past Minnesota. But they have a lot to look forward to, but obviously their main concern is getting their everything Zion healthy. They have a great coach in Willie Green that we were talking about, possibly coach of the year, a quarter through the season. So they have the pieces, but it's tough without your main guy pretty much all year long.
It's a little disheartening to have Zion say, hey, I'm healthy, I'm just not ready to play, I'm hesitant, I don't feel like I can be me. And I know these games are important, but I'm not ready to get out there. That doesn't sound like a guy who's going to play basketball anytime soon, even though he's healthy. So you start to worry about the buildup of this, just the constant injuries and how long it takes and the consistent setbacks, and if that's bothering him and going forward, what impact that has. I do like the Pelicans as a live underdog, especially if they had Zion. Even looking forward to the Nuggets series, and they have a bunch of bigs. They feel like they can throw out their bodies for Jokic, not necessarily stop him, but bodies for him. They can play big, they can play small. They got defenders on the wings. I know CJ McCollum's dealing with some injuries, but Brandon Ingram's been incredible for the last month. So they are a live underdog. But this is going to be a tough game for them tonight. And if they were going to make any noise in this playoffs, they needed Zion. It doesn't sound like they're going to have Zion.
Yeah, it is a bummer, especially since we did get a little taste of him earlier in the season. It was almost worse that we did get to see him, and now he's been taken away. SGA, though, averaged almost 34 points against this team. What is the play for him?
It's going to be tough. Then they do have some live buys to throw at him, unfortunately. Alvarado, I think, is out tonight as well. But I would look for Herb Jones to guard him. I'd look for Murphy. They would get some size, some guys that have length and can kind of mess him up a little bit there, push him off the ball a little bit, be physical with him. But this is a guy that's having a career year. He's averaging 31 points for the season and 33.5 against them. So it's going to be a tall task, but they have some bodies that are long and lengthy that can hopefully kind of disrupt him a little bit.
Yeah, look, he's tough to guard. You like Herb Jones in that matchup, but clearly hasn't worked this season as well. That's a guy that's going to get to the line. That's a guy that's going to find his shots. I like the matchup for the Thunder. These 7-foot guys they have roaming and shooting threes. They're a tough team to deal with. Is the lights going to be too bright for them in New Orleans? Maybe, maybe not. But look, they have nothing to lose.
Yeah, right? I almost feel like it's better that way. Taking a quick break here. When we come back, Chandler and Eddie's bold predictions, which will 100% all be correct. It's from the logo next.
Run it back, run it up, run it back, run it up, run it back, run it up, run it back, run it.
What better time to start with some bold predictions from the logo? Both Eddie and Chandler have put together some nuggets for us. I can't wait, personally. Eddie, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, we're just guessing here, but I think Paul George and Julius Randle, I think they're going to find their way to the court in the first round. I'm not a doctor. I know nothing about what's going on. I trust Shams reporting as well, but a lot on the line for both of those guys and both of those teams. They need them bad. Maybe Julius sooner, but I expect to see both. My next one is I think the Kings are going to win Game 1. They've been waiting 16 years for this game. I've seen the ticket prices back home. I've seen people so excited. It's going to be a raucous crowd. Look, the Warriors are they're always due for a stinker. They've done this before. They've lost Game 1, and it is what it is. I think the Warriors still win. My last one is I think Donovan Mitchell is the leading scorer in the playoffs this year. He's averaging 32 points a game this year against the Knicks so far. A great matchup for him. He's taking it personal. I think he's shooting close to 55% from the floor against them. So he's going to get off on a hot start. And we know what he can do in the playoffs. We've seen it before.
All right, I like those.
Those are good. 2 and 3, I think, actually will happen for you. Those are really good.
Thanks, I appreciate
it.
Mine, I went a little more bold. I got the Hawks last night. They showed me something. They got the talent, they got the scoring, they got the bench. Probably not going to happen, but I went super bold.
It's bold.
The Hawks beating the Celtics in the first round.
Bold strategy, Cotton.
Second, Drew Holiday wins Finals MVP.
Wow.
This one, honestly, I'm not too sure about.
That's the one.
Listen, but yeah, he's going to play both sides of the ball. He's going to guard the best player, and if he averages, let's say, 25 points a game, there's a chance. And again, I shot for the fences here. Swung for the fences.
Take that, Michelle.
Yep.
I'm not taking
Lakers
this at all.
beat the Grizzlies in
Wow.
the first round. So you wanted bold?
So there's some hot takes.
Here we
Really,
go.
very,
I
very.
went a little measured. And
Yeah.
you took the
Yeah.
bold
Well,
to heart.
Chandler's never been
I
one
see
to-
what you did there.
We're going to be back here in LA next week. Evan Turner here on Monday because Chandler apparently will be ODing on glitter bombs from Coachella.
I'm sick that day. I am already sick.
He's gonna be taking Claritin.
It's too much. Enjoy the rest of the week.
It's
See y'all
allergy
Monday.
season. Something's going around.
Run it up, the running back, yeah, yeah. Run it up, run it back, 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 run it up, and run it back, run it up.